What is good, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video as we're here for our first wrestling fantasy booking video of 2025, something that I've been working on for a minute and have enjoyed working on it. But we're here to talk about how I would book AEW Grand Slam 2025. Better yet, AEW Grand Slam Australia. A small little nitpick. I hope that if they continue to do Grand Slam events, mainly the yearly one that takes place in September, that they specify the location. Make it kind of how WWE used to do takeovers. Like we had Takeover Brooklyn, Takeover San Antonio, Takeover Orlando. Making it a little bit different, which with this first one, they have done that. So there's that. I will also say that I believe this is a pay-per-view event that is going to take place for most people, aka in the US, at 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, for me personally, AHS operates at a 24-hour basis. So this will be an interesting thing to note down the line. I'll also say I am filming this before this week's Dynamite because I don't want a lot of this to be outdated. And I think that over the course of this week, I shouldn't have that problem, but we will wait and see. With that, if there's anything else I need to note, I don't think so. On my piece of paper right now, in my notebook, I have 18 matches, I think, to be exact, wrote down. Now, before you're like, you are insane for that, 13 of them I would suggest for Grand Slam. 3 on the 0 hour pre-show, the other 10 on the main card. A lot of the main card matches wouldn't have to go that long, but they always load up the pay-per-views regardless. I can't really say that about World's End. It wasn't, but you get the point. The other 5 matches, I would recommend that the go-home episode of Dynamite pre-Grand Slam is presented as a big event. And something that I'll give AEW credit for is that they've been presenting this year, 2025, as a big deal and presenting a new audience that might be coming in from watching from Max. And they've been presenting the first couple of Dynamites as special events, which they used to do back in the day, but when they started adding more pay-per-views, that kind of slowly changed it. So last week was Fight for the Fallen. Next week is Maximum Carnage. This go-home edition to Grand Slam should be presented as a big deal event. And the matches that are taking place, that I suggest take place, kind of are a big deal. So we'll get to that when we get to that. The last thing that I need to know, and the main reason that there's so many freaking matches here, and this is a good thing for AEW. This is a good problem to have for me and whatnot. Their roster is slowly but surely getting healthier. This has been a major problem for them, I would say, since late 2021, early 2022. And with Kenny Omega and Adam Copeland return on the same night, it kind of spiced things up. And I'm not going to say they're completely healthy, but they're slowly but surely getting in that way. So that is why there are also so many more matches on here, because there's a lot of people that need to be booked and a lot of roles that need to be filled. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about this go-home edition of Dynamite, because I have 5 matches listed, which is the normal rate that they go. And the first match is referencing last week's edition of Dynamite, in which 2 men specifically talked about winning the World Championship. And I do think that there's a high chance that this match happens at some point this year. So I'm already suggesting that it get out of the way. MJF versus Jeff Jarrett. I know it's a bit of an insane match to start this all off with, but like I said, both men talked about winning the World Championship. I don't think they're going to jump directly into the world title picture. Hell, they might win that Casino Gauntlet match and things change up. But I think that these 2 guys are very, very similar. And I was going to say opposites attract, but I would say that people that are similar attract as well. Because Jeff Jarrett, one of the more predominant and dominant heels of the 2000s, and of his time period. You can go into the 90s, but mainly for me and my viewing experience in the 2000s, MJF has kind of filled that role in the 2020s a little bit. A clash of the same styles. Next match, a street fight, a tornado tag. You could put a couple of different stipulations on it, but it plays into a match talked about a little bit later on. But FTR versus Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, as this battle between Rated FTR and the Death Riders, almost calling them the BCC, continues on. And I'm mainly suggesting this match for something a little bit later on, which you could probably already figure out what that is going to be. Now, continuing on and talking about a title match now. For the TNT title, an open challenge by Daniel Garcia. Let's get the ball rolling on his TNT title run, because it was mainly a slow start because he was in the Continental Classic. He wasn't defending the TNT title. Now, granted, last week he had a good match with Mark Briscoe, and the title run is beginning. But with the TNT title was always, I'm not going to say always, but mainly looked at as the open challenge title. And I'm going to I'm going to bend my rule a little bit, because one of my main rules when I do fantasy booking, I talk about people that are on these roster pages. But the name I'm going to suggest answer this has been rumored to sign with AEW for like 2 months and has history with Daniel Garcia. Bring in Mike Bailey. And I'm mainly saying this because I love PWG, and as of right now, the last match of PWG history was between these two at the anniversary show that was also Mystery Vortex, which is still yet to be seen. But these two have history with one another. Let's bring it over into AEW, and it carries on. It makes sense. Next match, it's a bit of a tradition in AEW, and I have even complained about it before, but like I said, it's a bit of a tradition that I can kind of look behind. Fatal 4-Way, number 1 contenders match, with the winner facing the TBS champion at Grand Slam. Now, my main issue with this was like 2 and 3 years ago, when they kept constantly doing like 4-way matches and the winner gets a women's title match, is that it was always the same people. It was always Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, Toni Storm, and just insert other person. So I would say the caveat to this is could not have faced Mercedes Moné for this championship. So if you want to see who I suggest, you'll see in a couple of seconds. And lastly, this is the big thing. This is one thing that I really want to see in 2025, and I've been suggesting it for a minute. And let's start it off with the rip. Granted, one of the names I'm going to say involved in this, you are going to roll your eyes with, but the rest of them, I don't think you would. Actually, two of them. So that's why I put it on this Dynamite. They need to do another trios tournament. The inaugural one in 2022 was great, mainly the matches that were on Dynamite, and right now there are a lot of different groups and factions and pairings that you can make into trios that would spice things up, and you could have another great trios tournament. Now, why I am suggesting this match for Dynamite, because it involves 2 groups that have history with one another, and the fans are not the most excited for them, but I'm going to suggest the Learning Tree versus the Acclaimed. They're too big a names to not consistently have on TV or a pay-per-view, so I suggest to have it here in this tournament. And also, to be honest with you, if the Acclaim lose this, they finally go their separate ways, which we're kind of already going into that direction. As now we go into the 0 hour. And I kind of have another wild suggestion for this 0 hour. I have 3 matches, and they're all other trios tournament matches. So continuing talking about this trios tournament, I'll also say that I don't have the trios champions in the tournament. The winner of the tournament could be number 1 contenders and then potentially defeat the Death Riders for the titles, which I could see happening. First matchup I suggest, the reunited and new Undisputed Kingdom, kind of still the Undisputed Era to me, damn it, versus the Conglomeration. I talked about this in my ROH review this week, that the Conglomeration is like slowly drifting away because Orange Cassidy's been doing his own thing. Mark Briscoe's been doing his own thing. Rock Romero travels all over the world doing his own thing. And Kyle O'Reilly is joined up back with his Undisputed Kingdom friends. But I think that this is an important start for the Undisputed Era / Kingdom. I'm going to more than likely refer to them as the Undisputed Era, because that's, again, what I've always referred to them as. But this would kind of be the final push away of the Conglomeration, seeing their old friend join with his old friends in this group. And then they can go their separate ways. This next matchup, would be great. And I think I've suggested this in several other videos as well. The House of Black. It's important to get Buddy Matthews on this card, and here he is, versus La Faction Ingobernables, LFI. That's what I wrote down. That's what I should have just went with. I really want to see a Beast Mortos and Brody King pairing, but a trio of the past in the House of Black versus a trio of the future in LFI. And I want to see LFI on TV more. And if you're not going to give them the AEW Trios Championships, bring them to ROH and give them the ROH six-man tag titles, because it has been a minute since they've been defended, and all these LFI members have been booked several times in ROH. So this is just a personal note for me, but I do think this would be a great match. And the last match to wrap up this first round and on the 0 hour, Top Flight and Matt Sydal, who is rumored to return at any moment and has been out for a minute, but Top Flight, I could have paired them with Action Andretti or Leo Rush, but they're not cool with them anymore. They were cool with Matt Sydal. Versus the returning Young Bucks and Jack Perry of the Elite. It is an interesting note because the Young Bucks are now the IWGP Tag Team Champions, Heavyweight Tag Champions. So if you want to know how the rest of the Trios tournament would go, in my opinion, Learning Tree versus House of Black, Undisputed Kingdom versus the Elite. Actually, I would say, all right, Learning Tree advances, Undisputed Kingdom advances, House of Black advances, the Elite advance. I could have the Undisputed Kingdom. I see the Undisputed Kingdom beating the Learning Tree. I'm kind of getting flashbacks to that bad Adam Cole and Chris Jericho rivalry, but you could say that about a lot of Chris Jericho rivalries nowadays. The Elite versus the House of Black is the one that I'm iffy on, because I love the House of Black too much, but it's kind of a get back for the Elite, because when they lost their trios titles, it was to the House of Black. Granted, Kenny Omega was there, etc. I think the big matchup and the main matchup I want to see is the Undisputed Kingdom versus the Elite. This happened 3 years ago. It would have been way more special because Kenny Omega would have been involved. But I do think that this could spin off into a tag team rivalry with Roddy and Kyle versus the Young Bucks. Especially if Roddy and Kyle as IWGP Heavyweight Tag Champions. Y'all going to argue with that? Adam Cole, Jack Perry is what it is. But I just wanted to see the Undisputed Kingdom / era do something special. And I did think that this would be that. So now we are moving on to this main card. 10 matches, and the first one is a big matchup. A renewing of a past rivalry, and I will admit on Max, the last episode of Dynamite that I watched on Max had these two in a matchup, and it kind of spiced things up and made me suggest it. Kenny Omega versus the Bastard Pac. Kenny is going to return to AEW. He just had a great match in New Japan this past weekend that I was up to watch. Renewing an old rivalry with the Bastard Pac, especially because Pac has been trying to destroy AEW with his Death Rider group, and Kenny Omega is going to try his best to save the day for it. And a matchup that I suggest a little bit later on, this matchup plays into it as well. Next matchup is one that has been teased going on to last year, going into this year, but Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet will be an interesting testament to see who walks out of this one as the winner. I do think that Swerve needs to get a win, so I hope it would be him. Now this next two matchups should be stipulation matches because it's been matchups that we've seen over the past couple of pay-per-views, so it would spice things up. But you could choose your own stipulation. I provided my own suggested one. First one, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. I do think they will have one final match with one another, and this is a massive stage for this match to happen. I could see, and I could suggest, a 30-minute Iron Man match, which AEW has I'm trying to think how many I know they did MJF and Danielson, and they did Kenny and Pac. Also, to be honest, do not go into, if you do an Iron Man match, you do not go into overtime, because those other two matchups did. You didn't have to. But the one I wrote down was 2 out of 3 falls, which, again, there's another thing, the cliche thing with 2 out of 3 falls matchups where you get the first 2 falls, go quickly, that way you get to the third fall. So I do think that they need to have this tiebreaker match. I'm ignoring the match that they had on Dynamite last year, pay-per-view strictly, since the beef started with one another, and this would be a big stage for this match to take place with. This next matchup and rivalry has kind of been on again, off again, but I do think it's important that one of these men finally get this victory. Hangman Page versus Jay White. I've always been pushing the Jay White agenda that he should be winning. This is the time that I'm actually pushing the Hangman agenda and that he needs to be winning. And yes, I did write down for this to be a Texas death match because the last time we saw Hangman in one of those, he lost. He needs to get his get back on Jay White. He needs to take his match back in the Texas Death Match back. And this would be the best match that the two have had in AEW at least. Now we are in strictly title business as we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to go through. And the first one for the Tag Team Championships. Private Party defending their tag team titles against the Hurt Syndicates, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. I will admit, and I will say, that it did come across my mind that the Hurt Syndicate would do well in the Trios tournament, but MVP has not competed yet in AEW. There's a chance, there's probably a time that he will. So, if I could have inserted them into the Trios tournament. If y'all wanted to, wouldn't argue it, but I do think that Lashley and Shelton would have a dominant tag team title reign. And I wrote in quotations next to it, because I do think if they get booked to win, booked in the tag team title match, they're going to win. And this is mainly influenced from their tag team match last week. Them versus the new tag team of Lance Archer and Brian Cage in a tag team title match would be pretty good. TBS title match, I touched on it a little bit earlier. Mercedes Moné versus someone that has never gotten their rematch for the TBS Championship. And my suggested winner for that number 1 contenders match, Julia Hart, recently returned. Get her back into the TBS title picture. And I will admit, this is a definitely sappy note to mention. I don't get as interested in Mercedes Moné matches because I just always go into them with the mindset that she's going to win. And I've always personally had the sentiment that a match is better when you don't know who's going to win. Now, granted, when I look at a lot of these matchups, I don't really know who's going to win. If you want to talk about the Trios tournament, that's the specialty with the Trios tournament. The matches I suggested. 50-50 booking. Where with this, it's like 75-25. But Mercedes Moné has been on a good run in AEW. Post All In, if you want to be honest. But it's Mercedes Moné. She brings a lot of attention. This next matchup is one that I have suggested a lot. And I will mention to y'all now, it is the last time that I will do it. For the Continental title, Kazuchika Okada versus Katsuyori Shibata. I know that they've had a match in New Japan that is very infamous, and I feel that there is a story there that if it was closed and finished, fine and dandy, but I do think there's a way that this could be restarted, and I would say there's a bit of unfinished business there. But Katsuyori Shibata challenging Kazuchika Okada, at least having like a quick exhibition match at some point this year or some point in their 10 years in AEW would be an interesting note. But I'll also say I kind of ran out of people to mention in title matches, so that is why. And again, I keep suggesting this match. At some point this year, we'll probably get Omega and Okada. A lot of people don't anticipate it happening at Grand Slam. They think they're going to wait it out, especially if you looked at World's End and the All-In sign in the background. It kind of, had to figure it there. So it will be an interesting year for Omega and Okada and what the hell they do until that potential matchups. But they're two of the all-time greats. Eyes will be glued to the screen. Next matchup. International title match. Konosuke Takeshita, who will have a massive 2025 going against Mark Davis, who, again, one of these notable names that needs, or should be, on this card. And he has unfinished business with the Don Callis family as he was once a member of the group. But it's mainly a match to get Takeshita another win and to keep the ball rolling in his international title reign. And now never open weight title reign. So if you want to make this a double time match, you could. Now we get to the double main event. As my dog is starting to snore. Maybe he's just ready to watch this event take place. For the Women's Championship, a match that more than likely will happen again at some point in 2025. It happened in 2024, and the ball is already rolling for it. Mariah May versus Toni Storm. They've already announced that at next week's Maximum Carnage, we'll have the first Women's Casino Gauntlet match, with the winner facing the Women's Champion at Grand Slam. And I very much anticipate Toni Storm being in that match and winning. And like I said, there's unfinished business between the two. But there's a bit of, change of scenery and change of dynamic in this rivalry now. As now the last matchup to talk about for the AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley versus Adam Copeland. I'm not calling him Cope. I would rather just call him Edge. The ball is rolling on this. I will say the interesting dynamic with this, and the main reason I touched upon the FTR Death Riders street fight, and even Kenny versus Pac, eliminate the other Death Rider members, and this makes this match a one-on-one. Who is the better competitor between the two? And you could also add the interesting dynamics of Adam Copeland's former best friend and rival, Christian Cage, being the the looming number one contender for the World Championship and potentially interfering. The potential return of Darby Allin, which I will say this, whether it's in this big stadium for Grand Slam or just on a weekly show, I anticipate Darby's return because he always does something crazy. I anticipate it being crazy, but like with it being in this big stadium, and this is just me like hypothetically projecting this taking place then, would make it a lot more interesting. Because we need to get the Darby and Jon Moxley match to happen, because I don't really want to see Jon Moxley have another long AEW title run. That kind of stuff. I want to see Darby win the title at Revolution, which could go on to the How I Would Book Revolution video, but that is not what this is. This is a Grand Slam. But we're done. I had a lot of fun making this. Hopefully my dog snoring is not too loud, but, I don't think you'd want to wake your dog up. I'm not waking my dog up. I will say, at some point, isn't not guaranteed, but I'm trying my best. At some point, I'm going to try to make a How I Would Book WrestleMania 41 video. As my dog, again, keeps distracting me. Now, the issue here, I don't know if I include The Rock or not. If y'all watched Raw this week, I don't know what the hell to think about The Rock, if you just want me to be honest with you. And that's kind of the idea he was trying to project. So what I'm going to end up doing, because I feel that with The Rock, the card completely changes and matches completely change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a card with The Rock and one without The Rock. And then I'm going to flip a coin, and whatever one we get, that'll be the video I make. So that's my next project that I'm working on. I had a lot of fun with this. If you're going to Grand Slam, or you want to tell me what the hell you want to see happen at Grand Slam this year, comment down below. If you want to tell me what the hell you expect AEW to do in 2025, comment it down below, because it's time for me to join my dog to go to sleep. So I do appreciate y'all for watching this video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, because I'm out. Goodbye.